If you're always the nicest person in the room, you're probably the easiest one to use. And what's dangerous isn't that people notice, it's that you train them to treat you that way. If this is hitting uncomfortably close, pause for a second. Take a breath. And if you want more content that sharpens your awareness instead of soothing your ego, like this, follow and stay connected. Because this is about upgrading how you move through the world. Being excessively friendly is often mistaken for a moral strength, but psychologically, it's usually a fear response disguised as kindness. At its core, this behavior comes from a nervous system that has learned safety through approval. Somewhere along the way, you associated being liked with being safe, accepted, or valued, so your brain defaults to friendliness as a survival strategy. You smile first, explain yourself too much, agree even when you don't, and smooth over tension before it ever has a chance to exist. This isn't generosity, it's self-protection. When someone is genuinely secure, they don't rush to disarm others with charm or warmth. They can tolerate silence. They can tolerate disagreement. They can tolerate the possibility that not everyone will like them. A fear-based, friendly person cannot. Their friendliness is transactional, even if unconsciously so. They give warmth in exchange for reassurance, validation, or peace. The problem is that people instinctively sense this imbalance. When friendliness is driven by fear, it lacks weight. It feels porous. Others don't experience it as confidence or kindness. They experience it as availability without limits. And availability without limits invites pressure, testing, and exploitation. This is why overly friendly people often feel drained, overlooked, or taken for granted. They're constantly managing others' emotions to regulate their own. Their tone rises, their posture softens, their words bend, all in an effort to avoid friction. But friction isn't the enemy. Friction is how respect is formed. When you remove all edges from your personality, you also remove authority. Real kindness is calm and grounded. It doesn't perform. It doesn't chase. It doesn't overextend to prove worth. When friendliness is no longer used as armor, it becomes a choice rather than a reflex, and the body relaxes because it no longer believes acceptance is something that must be earned in real time. People don't respect access that is free and unlimited because the human mind assigns value based on scarcity, effort, and boundaries. When your time, attention, and emotional availability are always open, they stop being perceived as meaningful resources. Instead of thinking, "this matters," people subconsciously think, "this is always here." Unlimited access removes consequence, and without consequence, there is no incentive to treat something carefully. This isn't cruelty, it's psychology. The brain learns patterns quickly. If you always answer immediately, always agree, always show up, and always forgive, others learn that your presence requires no investment. There is no cost to crossing your line because the line keeps moving. Over time, familiarity replaces respect, and familiarity without boundaries turns into entitlement. People begin to assume they can interrupt you, dismiss you, delay you, or take more than they give. Not because they are bad, but because you taught them that access to you has no conditions. Scarcity is not manipulation, it is structure. When access is selective, it signals self-worth. It tells others that your time is allocated, not available by default. This creates attentiveness. People listen more closely, prepare more carefully, and behave more intentionally when they know access can be lost. Unlimited access also erodes your internal value system. When you give constantly without discernment, your nervous system associates self-neglect with connection. You begin to feel resentment, exhaustion, and confusion because you are paying an invisible cost others never agreed to pay. Boundaries correct this imbalance. They restore balance by making access a privilege rather than an expectation. When people earn your time instead of consuming it, interactions become cleaner, calmer, and more honest. Respect grows naturally when access is finite, intentional, and protected because consistency in boundaries reshapes behavior and restores equilibrium between giving and receiving over time without guilt, apology, or explanation to anyone involved there. Oversharing gives others leverage before they earn trust because information is power long before it is connection. When you reveal personal struggles, fears, plans, or emotional wounds too early, you hand someone a psychological map of you without knowing their intentions. Most people think oversharing builds closeness, but real trust is built through consistent behavior over time, not emotional disclosure on demand. The mind records what matters to you, what hurts you, what motivates you, and what destabilizes you. Once that data is out, it can't be retrieved. Even well-meaning people can unconsciously use it to position themselves above you, guide conversations, or define you through your weakest moments. In less healthy dynamics, that same information becomes a tool for manipulation, guilt, pressure, or subtle control. Oversharing often comes from a desire to be understood quickly, to fast-track intimacy, or to relieve internal tension by unloading it externally. But doing that skips an important psychological filter: observation. When you share before observing how someone handles power, disagreement, confidentiality, and stress, you gamble your inner world on an untested system. Calm, grounded individuals don't rush to explain themselves. They let people earn context. They understand that mystery is not deception, it's pacing. Pacing protects dignity. When someone knows everything about you too soon, they don't have to respect you to feel close to you. They already have access. And access without effort weakens your position in any interaction. Silence, restraint, and selective disclosure force others to engage with who you are now, not who you were at your most vulnerable. This creates balance. Trust grows when information is exchanged proportionally, not dumped asymmetrically. When you slow down what you reveal, you regain control over how you are perceived, how you are treated, and how much influence others have over your emotional state. Information shared intentionally strengthens connection, but information shared impulsively shifts power outward and teaches others that your inner world is open before it is protected or valued by anyone present. Boundaries create safety, authority, and attraction because they define where you end and others begin. Without boundaries, the nervous system stays on alert, constantly scanning for intrusion, overreach, or emotional drain. When you don't clearly signal what is acceptable, your body compensates by becoming tense, overly accommodating, or reactive. Boundaries remove that uncertainty. They tell the brain, I am protected. This internal sense of safety changes how you speak, move, and respond. Your voice slows down. Your posture settles. You no longer feel the need to justify or overperform. That calm presence is interpreted by others as authority, because authority is not loudness or dominance. It is certainty. People trust those who seem clear about themselves. Boundaries communicate clarity without words. They show that you respect your own limits, and psychologically, people mirror the level of respect you show yourself. When you say no without guilt, pause without panic, or disengage without drama, you demonstrate self-governance. That self-governance is the root of authority. Attraction follows the same principle. What is contained feels valuable. What is regulated feels intentional. When someone cannot immediately access all of you, they become more attentive. They listen more closely, behave more carefully, and invest more effort. Boundaries create contrast. They separate what is earned from what is not. This contrast creates intrigue and gravity. People lean toward what feels grounded and self-contained because it signals emotional maturity and strength. Boundaries also filter relationships. They repel those who seek control, entitlement, or easy access, and they draw in those who respect structure and reciprocity. This naturally improves the quality of your interactions. You stop negotiating your worth in real time and start occupying it quietly. Safety stabilizes you, authority anchors you, and attraction emerges as a byproduct of coherence rather than performance. When boundaries are consistent, they reduce chaos, increase respect, and allow genuine connection to form without pressure, confusion, or emotional debt accumulating beneath the surface where resentment usually grows unnoticed and unresolved. Being agreeable is not the same as being respected because agreement signals compliance, while respect is built on perceived strength and self-definition. When you agree too quickly or too often, you remove friction before it has a chance to reveal who you are. People don't learn your standards, your values, or your limits. They only learn that you're easy to move. The mind doesn't associate ease with authority. It associates it with flexibility, and excessive flexibility reads as negotiability. When everything about you can be adjusted to fit the moment, others don't feel the need to anchor themselves around you. They lead and you follow. Agreeable behavior is often driven by the belief that harmony equals safety, but harmony without tension is fragile. It's maintained by avoidance, not mutual respect. Respect forms when people know where you stand even when it's inconvenient. It comes from witnessing you hold a position calmly under pressure. When you disagree without hostility, pause without anxiety, or decline without over-explaining, you demonstrate internal stability. That stability is what others respond to. Over-agreeable individuals unintentionally teach people that their preferences are optional. Over time, this creates subtle dismissal. Your opinions are heard but not weighted. Your presence is tolerated but not prioritized. You become predictable, and predictability without depth reduces influence. Respect requires a sense of consequence. Not punishment, but clarity. Others must sense that access, cooperation, and closeness depend on mutual regard. When you default to agreement, there is no cost for disregard. You continue showing up the same way regardless of how you're treated. That consistency may look like loyalty, but psychologically, it communicates that your internal state is dependent on external approval. People don't respect what needs them. They respect what chooses them. Choosing yourself doesn't require confrontation or coldness. It requires discernment. You allow disagreement to exist. You let silence do some of the work. You stop cushioning every interaction to protect others from discomfort. In doing so, you give your words weight. Respect grows not from being easy to deal with, but from being clear, grounded, and self-directed, even when agreement would be simpler and more comfortable for everyone involved. Your tone teaches people how to treat you because humans respond more to emotional signals than to words themselves. Long before someone processes what you're saying, their nervous system is reading how you're saying it. A rushed tone signals anxiety. A soft, rising tone signals uncertainty. Overly apologetic language signals low expectation of respect. Even when the words are reasonable, the tone underneath them sets the rules of engagement. If your tone asks for permission, people feel licensed to deny it. If your tone carries hesitation, people sense opportunity to push. This happens automatically, not consciously. The brain is wired to detect confidence, threat, submission, and authority in milliseconds. When your tone consistently prioritizes comfort over clarity, you train others to expect accommodation. They interrupt you because your tone allows it. They delay you because your tone doesn't demand urgency. They cross lines because your tone doesn't mark them clearly. Tone is not about volume or aggression. It's about pace, certainty, and emotional steadiness. A grounded tone is slow, neutral, and deliberate. It doesn't rush to please or defend. That steadiness communicates self-trust. When people sense self-trust, they adjust their behavior, they listen more carefully, they choose their words more precisely, they hesitate before overstepping. This is why two people can say the same sentence and receive completely different reactions. One sounds unsure, the other sounds settled. The words are identical, but the nervous system response is not. Many people soften their tone out of fear of appearing rude, but what they actually project is insecurity. Respect does not come from sounding nice, it comes from sounding certain. When your tone is congruent with your boundaries, it reinforces them without explanation. You no longer need to repeat yourself or justify your position. Your voice does the work. Over time, people learn the pattern. They stop testing. They stop negotiating. They respond to the emotional signal you consistently send. Your tone becomes a quiet contract that defines how much access, influence, and leeway others are allowed to have around you without confusion or escalation or emotional labor, draining your energy every interaction. Calm restraint signals confidence and self-control because it shows you are not governed by impulse or external pressure. When you don't react immediately, explain excessively, or fill every silence, you communicate that you are comfortable within yourself. The nervous system of others picks this up instantly. People are wired to respect those who appear internally regulated because regulation suggests competence and strength. Someone who can pause instead of rushing to respond is perceived as someone who is choosing their actions rather than being driven by emotion. That choice is power. In contrast, constant reactions, quick defenses, and emotional overexposure suggest that your internal state is easily influenced. Even when the intention is honesty, the signal sent is vulnerability without containment. Calm restraint is not withdrawal or indifference. It is presence. Without urgency, you stay engaged, but you don't chase control of the interaction. This creates a subtle imbalance that works in your favor. Others slow down. They reveal more. They become more careful. Silence becomes a mirror. When you don't rush to fill it, people project into it. They explain themselves, justify their positions, or recalibrate their behavior. This gives you information without asking for it. Self-control also builds trust. When people see that you don't escalate, gossip, or emotionally spill under stress, they feel safer around you. Safety combined with strength is rare, and rarity attracts attention. Calm restraint also protects your energy. You don't spend it managing perceptions, soothing discomfort, or repairing situations that didn't require engagement in the first place. You respond only when there is something meaningful to add. Over time, this pattern teaches others that your attention is intentional, not automatic. They begin to value it. They weigh their words more carefully because they know you won't chase resolution or validation. Calm restraint creates a gravity around you. It anchors your presence. You stop being pulled into unnecessary dynamics and start influencing the room simply by how you hold yourself. Confidence stops being something you try to project and becomes something others infer naturally from your stillness, consistency, and emotional discipline in moments where reaction would have been easier but far less effective overall. Selective warmth is power, while indiscriminate warmth is vulnerability because it determines who earns access to your energy and who merely consumes it. When you give attention, kindness, or approval without evaluation, you are treating your internal resources like an unlimited commodity. People quickly adapt to this. They come to expect it, take it for granted, and often exploit it without consideration. Warmth that is given too freely sends a subtle signal. My energy is not scarce, my approval is not earned. This erodes respect because human psychology assigns value based on effort, scarcity, and boundaries. Conversely, when warmth is selective, it communicates intention and awareness. You choose who deserves your attention, your empathy, and your support. This choice creates contrast. People notice that your energy is finite and that receiving it requires alignment with your standards. That awareness generates attentiveness, effort, and subtle deference. Selective warmth also protects your nervous system. Every unfiltered act of kindness carries a cost. Emotional fatigue, reduced clarity, and sometimes manipulation by those who sense they can take more than they give. By controlling the flow of your warmth, you maintain internal equilibrium. You decide who benefits from your presence rather than leaving it to chance. This transforms relationships. Interactions become intentional exchanges rather than unconscious drains. People begin to mirror the respect and effort you show. You create a magnetic effect. Warmth becomes desirable, not automatic, and influence grows naturally. Indiscriminate warmth, in contrast, removes that dynamic entirely. It flattens perception, diminishes authority, and invites entitlement. Power lies not in being liked by everyone, but in being valued by those who earn it. When your kindness is intentional, you're no longer reactive. You're strategic, grounded, and in control of your social ecosystem. And that subtle but deliberate calibration of energy is what separates influence from weakness.